In this video, you're going to see me give a talk for Adobe Generation Professional, a live stream that I did back in, I think, March of this year, 2017, and it was for their employability course. The live stream is for a bunch of educators, Adobe staff, students, whoever felt the need that they wanted to learn more about how to get employed, what this digital world is going to look like, what it looks like now. And I talk a bit about sort of some of the lessons that I've learned so far trying to start my career, and sort of how I use social media to get these great opportunities that I've had so far. But I explain a little bit more about what the talk is in the beginning of the talk. So without further ado, I'm gonna let March Jamie take over. Presentation. But hello, my name is Jamie Whiffin. I'm from the UK, I'm from London. I'm currently at university in Lincoln, and I've been asked today to come and sort of talk in this live stream a little bit about me, sort of some of the thoughts that I think sort of what young people could be doing sort of to improve their chances of employment sort of after university, and sort of what young people can be doing now. This advice is more specifically for sort of what I've learned in my past, but I think that it can be applied to a lot of areas in life, sort of in your career. I don't think you have to be young necessarily to employ these kind of things in this sort of like this digital landscape now. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I learned to develop my social media, and sort of just some things that I've learned that I think have helped me along my way compared to sort of my peers, the other people at university and other people at my age. So a little bit about me. I'm a photographer, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a YouTuber, I love social media. I'm an Adobe student rep, as well as a radio show host and BA, as well as a bunch of other things. But I'm finding now that more people want to say, you know, what is it that you do? It's a little bit hard to, you know, to just string off all of those things plus a couple of others that I've done. But I found that, you know, all of these things, they're all very visual and very creative. So when people sort of ask, like, you know, what is it do I say? Like I'm into creativity and sort of art, and I just sort of say I'm a creative. I think that's the best way to put it, because it you know, it just saves everyone time rather than having to list off like 20 different roles. So I've worked with some pretty big companies. These are just some of the ones that I've picked out. So Adobe, obviously, YouTube, EA, Disney, Machinima, and that's sort of been over the last couple of years that I've done that. And sort of in this sort of this live stream, I want to just talk about some of the specific things I think have really contributed, that have allowed me to sort of like get to these next levels pretty quickly, and hopefully continue with in the future. But like one of the primary things I think has allowed me to get so far ahead is by doing extra stuff, by doing personal projects. You know, I've always thought that by being able to sort of be multi-talented and sort of know these different areas, you can't just sort of like stay in university and listen to sort of what your tutors are telling you and you go home and that's it. Between sort of like 6 p.m. and like 2 a.m. For like the last couple of years, every day I will spend time either making YouTube videos or practicing photography or learning video editing, or learning online through YouTube and Google and all these different areas, to try and like improve my skill set. And I've like went one step beyond just learning it, and I've put sort of like these personal projects on myself, because I always think like if you're curious, like most of my personal projects come from being curious about something. And so if I'm kind of if I look into it and I kind of go, actually, yeah, I want to learn more about this, and it develops into a passion, that's when you get to like that hard work stage, which is what I have here on the presentation. Like once you're in that hard work stage and you've got that passion that's driving you, it's fine to be up until like 2, 3 in the morning working, because you want to. And you know, if you're working that much extra than everyone else, you're going to have more work to show off to your employers. You're going to have more skills, and you're just going to be more knowledgeable. You know, and if you're someone who can pull onto all of these different areas, sort of like radio, and then maybe like video over here, and then how to actually like promote your work on social media. If you can put all these different things into one area, you know, you're already going to be so much more valuable to not just sort of an employer or a company sort of after university or in your career, but you'll be more valuable to yourself. You'll be able to understand more. You'll feel more confident. And I'll just take you through a couple of the projects. So one of them I started last year and finished about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago now, was Project 365, where I said I was going to take a photo every single day for an entire year. No gaps, no misses, just every day I had to do it. And it was very tough at times because you were forced to be creative. Like I have to take a photo today. And because I was very hard on myself, I was like, it has to look really cool. I would end up having to look at certain items around my room, or if I was going on a walk out, I'd have to look for something different. And that automatically over an entire period of a year has allowed sort of my visual eye to be trained in a way that lets me see things differently compared to the people who are, say, at university, who are studying photography, and they decide that they're just going to pick up the camera, once a month, wander about and just take snapshots of things. You're never going to get to that next level. You're not going to improve. But by forcing yourself to work every day, it really sort of took me up to the next level. And when I started off, I was taking those kind of snapshots, and as time went on, I was able to sort of spot things like minimalism and sort of framing, and knowing sort of when things were going to happen. Like this shot, I quickly just saw a few seconds before it was going to happen, and I dived down, crouched on the floor and got this shot. And you start to learn how to use lighting and different framing. But that's just one of the projects that I've done. Another one that I would say is probably very, very big to me, it's probably the biggest, was YouTube. So I started YouTube back in 2006 when I was about 11, 12 years old, so a long time ago. And back then I was very much so just looking at sort of technology tutorials and just nothing too great, but it allowed me to understand how YouTube worked. It got me into video editing and sort of Photoshop and all that sort of stuff, and that then allowed me to build upon that, and I transitioned from that into sort of gaming. So I started, and it was pretty bad. I put this little TV board around it to make it look how bad it was. It was square frame on YouTube. It was really laggy, as you can see here. I wasn't very confident. I was mumbling. I was very shy. And then as time went on, I improved, and I can now make sort of more professional looking videos and stuff that I really enjoy. And it's just allowed me to learn more of not just about YouTube, but all those things behind the scenes, which then those skills, they transfer into stuff like photography and filmmaking. And as of now, I have over 27 million views and 86,000 subscribers. But one of the things with those passion projects is that you have to recognize that it does take time, that you have to have patience. It takes time to find your audience. It takes time for you to find that particular piece of content. You need to try 4 different shows or 3 different kinds of variety of something. You need to experiment all the time, and eventually, one video will hit with an audience, and you'll just know, okay, I should make some more of that. And that's going to take time for you to learn that. And you also eventually become good at it as well. It took me several years. I was very young when I started the gaming videos when I was probably 15. Now I'm 21, so I've had nearly 5 years, 6 years doing it. And that's the same with the photography and the Project 365. I gave myself a year. I didn't give myself a month. After a month, there wasn't much improvement. It was only 100 days in was when I could look back and actually see the improvement. I'll give you another example of this. I'd say probably October time in 2015. There was a Canon ambassador that I really sort of liked his work and his company in London, and I really wanted to work there. I wanted to do something that summer, and this is the summer just gone, by the way. And I thought to myself, what can I do? How can I work here? And so I just chipped away at him for months and months and months. I recognized that I couldn't just do what everyone else did, which is just tweet him or just turn up and be like, hi, can I have a job? Because he's going to be like, well, no, who are you? You need to have that connection, that relationship. And so I took several months building that up, you know, I'd set like his little tip. I set up his Twitter to like ping notifications to my phone every single time he tweets. The same would go for when he was on Periscope, so it was live, and I'd always turn up and I'd interact and I'd make myself known. And another thing, if you're ever going to do anything like that, make sure you don't change your profile picture, because I think it's easier for people to remember you through your profile picture as opposed to a name. So from like October till probably April, I stayed with the same profile picture. I popped up in his feed all the time, and I made myself recognizable to him. And then eventually, that's when I was like, you know, could I possibly have an internship over the summer? And that's what happened. And I worked there for about 4 months. I learned a lot. I met some really cool people, some good contacts. We went to Cannes Lions in France, which was like really insane. He asked me to come an hour after the interview. But none of that would have happened unless I recognized that it did take time, like with all those other projects. And I think that that's something that a lot of people don't want, because of how we are nowadays. It's very much so instant gratification, like they want it now. And I have to always kind of, because I'm like that sometimes, but you have to remember, you know, to take the time, be a bit patient. So I've learned a lot of my stuff through several different online places. Like I personally say, I'm about to finish my 3rd year at university, and I feel like I've not learned a great deal, simply just because of the fact that I'd learned a lot of it already through YouTube and Google years prior to coming to university. But I think the internet is a tool that I'll always use, and you know, it is the future. I think we all know that, and I always use it to sort of brush up on the skills where I'm weak. And I think like if you're like at home now and you're not using the power of the web to like improve your skill set or your work, or to just share your work, please start, because it's a lot easier than you would think to start to like get yourself out there. Sort of some of the resources that I've used to sort of learn about social media, creativity, business, and sort of like the digital landscape. Like one of them is Gary Vaynerchuk. This guy is, I think he's got like an 800 employee company in New York. It's all about social media, and he does stuff like Coca-Cola and just massive brands. And he has a YouTube channel where he puts up these 2 shows that I watch quite a bit, and I'd say he's probably the person where I've learned the most from. He has 2 shows. So the first one is the Ask Gary V show, which is where people just send him questions about social media. How can I grow my YouTube channel? How can I sell my work online? I have an employee that I'm having trouble with, and you know, just anything really. And he just gives like this advice that you know, you wouldn't necessarily think of. Like, he's very, very smart, and I think that he has been like a very big contributing factor for me to realize how much sort of you have to work and how you have to be patient and stuff like that. Sort of like in the Ask Gary V show is where it's very much like question answer, and so you learn that way. And actually, 1 second, I just realized I have like his other book here, because he has a whole like range of books that he's done as well that are very useful. But then he has a second show called Daily V, which is where he has a guy follow him around for like 12 hours a day whilst he's at work, and he records him constantly, and it's cut up into like a vlog where it's like 15-16 minutes where you get to just see how he works with clients, and it's just very, very interesting to see sort of how his business works and what he thinks about social media. And I've employed a lot of the tactics that he sort of gives out, and I've found them to be very, very useful so far. Another person is like Tim Ferriss. So he's someone who's like a podcaster, and I think he's like the #1 business podcast on iTunes, and he talks to people who are in like investing or sports, business, art, technology, like social media stars. He speaks to a lot of people, and he like tries to break down like what is it that they did, what's their story, where did things go up to the next level, what like the tools that they use and the tactics and the routines. And he's like spoken to people like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Tony Robbins, Rick Rubin, Casey Neistat, and so he's someone that I will use when I'm actually working. So if I'm going on a walk outside for photography, I would just put headphones in and listen for an hour and a half whilst I go and do photography. So it's like that multitasking of being able to like balance those two things. And or if I'm doing design, you know, it's just like being able to get extra information in. And it is very, very useful through that way. And the same goes for someone like Chase Jarvis. Now he's someone who's done a lot of videos on photography. So for me, I've always found it very useful to listen to the advice that he says, because he also does stuff about careers and like video, and just sort of like general tips and tricks about anything that would be kind of useful to your work. You know, he's been a photographer for people like Nike and Starbucks, Apple, you know, big companies. And then he also has this series called 30 Days of Genius. And this is a YouTube series where he's interviewed people like Richard Branson, Mark Cuban, and Jared Leto, just really big people. And being able to sort of like listen to these different backgrounds, it's really informed my work. It's allowed me to sell my work, and it's allowed me to gain an audience with my work. Whereas other people at like university, they sort of are there just for university, and then after university they're going to get the job because they think that that is where sort of like life starts, that's where their career starts, when actually your career started 10 years ago. You know, it starts whenever like you start learning about what it is that you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. You know, people at the minute in my year, they're like still kind of like plodding around and not doing anything. They don't do much in their spare time. But for me, I'm always employing these passion projects, and I'm learning from people like this who are like famous and very successful in their fields. And I think if they're giving out this free content, take it, you know, watch it. You know, a lot of people don't watch it, and I think that that's why I sort of have that slight bit of edge over them a lot of the time. And like the last one here is like Thomas Frank. Now he's more based in sort of like university stuff. So he's like 20 useful websites for students, how to read a college textbook, how to create a final exam study schedule. And he's sort of more for like the educational side, while the others are more like creativity and business and social media. But these four people for me are, I would say, are probably like the biggest place what you can do today. If you start watching them, just seeing the content that they produce, you know, it might just give you that original idea. Something might tick in your head and you'll go, okay, I could do that. And automatically, you know, you've learned something that you wouldn't have if you hadn't watched it. You know, don't watch Netflix. Maybe just watch one of their videos for 20 minutes a day. You know, it's not too hard. I don't think, for sort of like the effort you put in compared to what you get out. So for me, connecting the dots, it's always easy looking back. Sort of I can look at YouTube and say, well, that's how I got my Photoshop skills and video editing skills. And you know, I was able to make my YouTube into a business, and I got thousands of pounds through doing that. You know, I've learned how to interact on social media because of it, and advertise my content and interact with fans. And then that helped me with university, and then it's helped me here with Adobe, for example. Say with Adobe, they once advertised like they were looking for student reps, and so I applied. And during that month that I was the student rep, I pushed out so much work on social media. I did photos, I did videos, I did tweets, I did Facebooking, I did Snapchat, I did Instagram. I was doing everything I could to sort of like gain that attention because no one else was doing it. And yet within that month period, I got an email, and it was from someone at Adobe, and they said, you are now the #1 student rep in the UK. And they asked me if I'd like to go to OFF, which is a festival in Barcelona. And they flew me out for I think it was like 5 days, and I went to Barcelona OFF, and I met all these great people and these contacts. And it just got me more involved with Adobe, and then that's obviously led to myself and Greg. We were at BET in January. I worked with him, and I've obviously met Greg, and that's how I'm here today. So, you know, looking back, it's very easy to connect the dots and see how things worked out. And what I try and do every now and again is I try to look backwards and see, okay, so where have I been successful? What happened? And in those moments, that's where I try and understand, and I try and learn those lessons where things didn't go quite as well as they could have done. And then I will try and keep that in mind when I'm then looking to the future. If I'm, you know, in a position where I need to make a decision I will look to the future, but I'll remember the past. I will try and connect those dots because I think that helps you spot opportunities. And then one of the last things is sort of learn how to use the tools rather than a systematic process. This is something I've discussed before in the past, which I believe that the best teachers that I've ever had were the kind that allowed me to sort of go off the well-trodden path and either, and do my own thing, and either, learn something completely new and, come up with an original idea, or I will, come back to that path having learned something. I think that that's so much better than what I've been taught in secondary school and sixth form and now university, which is them enforcing that like systematic process of like you're in like point A and you need to get to point B and you need to do it through this step and this step and this step and you need to do it to this quality to get this grade. I think when they put everyone into that box, it really like stifles creativity and sort of it stunts originality. And I think that being able to know the tools first and not learning like a process, if you know how to use those tools, you can make what you want, which pops into your head. That's how you're original, because you say, in Photoshop, oh, I know how to, use all of these different kinds of tools. You can employ them in a unique way that's just going to separate you from everyone else. And that's something that I've done. Like, I'm at university, but half the time I would say I probably ignore like the advice that my teachers give me, because I think that like a lot of them, they don't see it as that wider thing. They feel like it's their job to obviously get you from this point to this point, which is their job. But for me overall, I try to go around that in a way and do more, because I think it just helps me stand out from the crowd, and I think it has so far.
So Jamie,
so just to recap, yes.
Jamie, I think you definitely do stand out from the crowd, but I am going to have to ask you to just finish off if you can, because we've got quite a lot of content to get through. Everything you've said has been fascinating, but if you could just finish off for us, and then if there's a question, we'll do that, and then we'll shift over to Ken.
Cool, that's fine with me. So yeah, like that's what I'd say. There's sort of a recap is just to have personal projects, employ a bit of patience, sort of make sure you study those people online, because they really can help you out. Sort of look towards the past and see how you can employ them in the future, and to also learn the tools and not a structured process. But other than that, that's me. So thank you,
Jamie. That's brilliant. We've literally got time for one quick question. So I'm sure there are thousands, and I'm not sure if Jamie is going to be able to stick around in the class and answer stuff in the background, but I'm sure he'll be able to. Okay, that would be brilliant. So any questions? Quick question for Jamie. Jamie, my concern is, there's only 24 hours in the day, 364 days, 365 it was when I last counted it.
Yeah.
But you're obviously burning the candle at both ends. So that was a really, really interesting insight. Here you go. Maggie in Honolulu, as you do, is asking, where do you want to go? What are you going to do? Where are you going to end up?
Well, I graduate university in about a month and a half. I have no idea what it is that I want to do with my career, or what area to specifically go into, let alone which company, or if I'm going to work for myself, or whatever. It's very up in the air at the minute, and hopefully I can figure that out. But what motivates me is I just think, why not try and do the best that you can. There's a lot to life, and I think working hard is one of the things that brings the most to you. I think if you don't work hard, there's only so far that you can get, and that's why I think I try my best in all the areas that I have done and continue to do.
That's a brilliant way to end it, Jamie. So massive thank you for giving everybody your thoughts on what you've done. I'm sure there's a massive virtual round of applause that's going to reach out around the globe. But we're going to hand straight over now to